The red dust of Mars swirled gently around the dome of New Armstrong Colony as thousands gathered for the 50th anniversary celebration. Flags from Earth's nations and the United Mars Colony fluttered in the artificial breeze, their colors bright against the rust-colored sky. 8-year-old Tom Anderson couldn't stop grinning as he watched the festivities from his favorite spot near the Central Garden. Born on Mars, he had never seen Earth except in videos and virtual reality sessions, but that didn't bother him. Mars was his home, and today was special. "Remember to stay where I can see you," his mother called out, adjusting her formal uniform. As the colony's chief botanist, she had helped create the massive gardens that fed the colonists. Tom nodded, his attention already drawn to the strange figures entering through the main airlock. The Galactic Council representatives had arrived. Their tall, sleek forms towered over the human diplomats escorting them. Their iridescent robes caught the light from the dome's artificial sun, creating rainbow patterns on the polished floor. 4 council members had come, each from a different species, to observe this historic celebration. What the humans didn't know was that behind their polite smiles and diplomatic words, the council members watched with growing concern. Humanity's rapid expansion and technological progress over the past 50 years had sparked worried discussions in many closed council sessions. "Look at how quickly they've adapted to Mars," one council member whispered to another in their own language. "Their children are being born here now. At this rate." Tom wasn't aware of their whispered concerns. He was too busy studying the beautiful crystalline flower that had just bloomed in the garden, a new hybrid his mother had created. It was perfect, he thought, just perfect for a welcoming gift. Carefully, he plucked the flower. His mother had taught him how to harvest them properly, ensuring the plant would produce more. The crystal-like petals caught the light, sending tiny rainbows dancing across his face. The crowd's chatter became background noise as Tom made his way toward the council members. In his mind, this was how peace worked. You gave something beautiful to new friends. He'd learned about it in school, how humans used to exchange gifts when meeting new cultures. He didn't notice how the council guards tensed as he approached, their hands moving to their weapons. He didn't see the fear in their eyes as they watched this small human dart through the crowd. He didn't understand that to them. Any unpredictable human movement was a potential threat. "Welcome to Mars," Tom called out, holding up the flower as he got closer. "This is for you. My mom made it." Time seemed to slow down. The guards saw a human moving quickly toward their charges. The council members stepped back in alarm. Tom's mother turned at the sound of her son's voice. The crowd began to realize something was wrong. The guard's weapon made no sound. There was just a flash of light. And then, Tom's small body crumpled to the floor, the crystalline flower shattering beside him. Its broken pieces scattered across the polished floor, each fragment reflecting the horror on hundreds of faces. For one terrible moment, nobody moved. Then Tom's mother screamed. The sound shattered the silence like the broken flower, releasing a wave of chaos. Medical teams rushed forward, but it was already too late. The council guards formed a protective circle around their charges, weapons ready, as if they were the ones in danger. On every screen across Mars and Earth, the celebration's live broadcast showed the scene in perfect, horrible detail. Billions watched as a child's simple act of friendship was met with lethal force. The council representatives quickly retreated to their ship, citing security protocols and diplomatic immunity. They left behind a changed humanity. As Tom's mother cradled her son's body, her tears falling on his still face, something shifted in the human spirit. Deep beneath Earth's oceans and mountains, in places forgotten by most of humanity, ancient systems began to hum to life. Humanity had maintained peace with the galaxy for 50 years, playing the role of the eager, friendly newcomers to galactic society. That peace died with Tom Anderson, the boy who only wanted to give a flower to the stars. 3 days after Tom Anderson's death, Earth's streets filled with mourners. From New York to Tokyo, from London to Mumbai, people carried crystal flowers, copies of the one Tom had offered in friendship. The image had become a symbol, a reminder of innocence destroyed by fear. In the United Nations emergency session, Earth's leaders gathered to address the galaxy's greatest crisis. The main screen showed the Galactic Council's official response, words that made diplomats' hands curl into fists. The security response was within standard protocols. The human child's unpredictable movement toward council representatives required immediate action. The Galactic Council considers this matter closed. Admiral James Miller watched from the back of the room as Earth's president threw down her datapad in disgust. He knew what was coming. His hand touched the ancient key card in his pocket, a key card that hadn't been used in 50 years. They murdered a child. The president's voice shook with rage. A child offering a flower, and they dared to call it protocol. The Martian ambassador stood up, his face pale with grief. The colony demands justice. Tom Anderson was one of ours, the first generation of Mars-born humans. His death cannot go unanswered. As if in response, the main screen flickered again. A new message from the council appeared. Any further protest of this security action will be considered a violation of council law. Economic sanctions will follow. This is your only warning. The room erupted in angry shouts, but Admiral Miller quietly slipped away. In his pocket, the keycard felt warm, almost alive. It was time. Deep beneath Mount Cheyenne, past security checkpoints that hadn't seen use in decades, Miller placed his hand on a dusty scanner. Ancient lights flickered to life, illuminating a massive command center. Other military leaders from around the world were arriving too, each carrying their own ancient keys. Computer, activate Protocol Omega. Miller's voice echoed in the vast chamber. Authorization code. Remember Earth. Screens lit up across the walls. Data streams that had been hidden for half a century became visible. The truth of humanity's military power began to emerge. On Mars, in the same garden where Tom had picked his last flower, something massive stirred beneath the red soil. Hidden doors, disguised as basic maintenance hatches, slowly opened. Similar events were happening across the solar system, on Europa, on Titan, in the clouds of Jupiter. Back in the command center, Admiral Miller addressed the gathered leaders. For 50 years, we've played our part. We've been the eager students, the peaceful newcomers, the grateful children of the galaxy. He paused, looking at the images of awakening facilities across the solar system. That ends today. One of the Chinese generals spoke up. The old fleet, is it still operational? Miller nodded. Everything is exactly as we left it. Hidden, maintained, ready. Our ancestors knew this day might come. They knew we might need to remind the galaxy why Earth was never conquered, never colonized, never subjugated. Screens showed massive ships emerging from their long slumber. Vessels that made humanity's public space force look like toys. Technology that the Galactic Council thought had been lost to time. What about the Council's threats? Someone asked. Admiral Miller's face hardened. They killed a child who offered them friendship. Now they threaten us with sanctions. He pressed a button, and more screens lit up, showing hidden fleets and weapons across 100 star systems. Let them try. In orbit around Mars, the Council observation ship's sensors detected unusual energy readings from the surface. They dismissed it as mineral deposits or atmospheric interference. They didn't realize they were watching humanity's mask begin to slip. Tom Anderson's mother stood in her son's room, touching the pictures on his wall. Drawings of stars and ships, of flowers, and new worlds. Her phone beeped with a classified message. Protocol Omega activated. The fleet awakens. Justice comes. She picked up one of Tom's toy spaceships, a model of humanity's simple public vessels. Underneath it, she found his last drawing, a picture of himself giving flowers to the stars. They should have taken the flower, she whispered. Now they'll meet the thorns. The Galactic Council's main chamber buzzed with nervous energy as emergency alarms blared throughout the station. On the massive display screens, impossible images appeared one after another. From Jupiter's swirling clouds, massive warships emerged, each one larger than anything the Council had in its fleet. The ships were black as space itself, their hulls marked with symbols no living Council member had seen in 10,000 years. "Impossible," whispered the Council leader, his scales turning pale. "Those markings, they're from the ancient war. No species has that technology anymore." More alerts flashed. From beneath Earth's oceans, from Mars' polar ice caps, from Saturn's rings, humanity's hidden fleet was waking up. Each vessel carried weapons that belonged in history books, not real space. On Earth, Admiral Miller stood before the world's press. The time for secrets had ended. "For 50 years, he began, his voice carried to every human colony and Council world. "Humanity has shown you only what we wanted you to see. Our simple ships, our basic weapons, our seemingly young space program. All of it was a mask." He touched a button, and holographic images appeared around him. They showed Earth's true history, a planet that had fought in wars before the current Council even existed, a civilization that had chosen to hide its power, to give peace a chance. 10,000 years ago, Earth was part of a galactic war that nearly destroyed everything, Miller continued. Our ancestors fought alongside species now extinct, against enemies now forgotten. When the war ended, Earth made a choice. We would hide our power, bury our fleets, and wait. We hoped for a galaxy that had learned from its mistakes. In deep space, Council sensors detected more ships appearing. Each one carried technology that their scientists had claimed was impossible. Weapons that could tear apart stars, shields that could withstand supernovas, engines that bent space itself. "We chose peace." Miller's voice grew harder. "We played the role of newcomers, hoping to find friends among the stars. And how did the mighty Galactic Council respond to our friendship? By killing a child who offered them a flower." The Council chamber erupted in panic as more data poured in. The human ships weren't just appearing. They were moving with perfect coordination, taking up strategic positions across the galaxy. 50 years of watching, of learning Council patrol routes and defense positions, had taught humanity everything they needed to know. A new figure appeared on the Council's screens. It was Tom's mother, wearing a military uniform that no one had seen before. The badges on her shoulder showed rank insignia from the ancient wars. "I am Fleet Commander Anderson," she said, her voice steady despite her grief. "That boy your guards murdered, he was my son. He was also the great-great-grandson of the admiral who chose to hide our fleet, who believed in peace." On the screens behind her, more ships appeared. These weren't the ancient vessels from Earth. They were new ships, built in secret shipyards throughout the solar system. Humanity hadn't just preserved its old fleet. It had kept building. "We could have conquered you 50 years ago," she continued. "We could have ruled the galaxy with the weapons we keep hidden. Instead, we offered friendship. We played nice. We let you look down on us, think us primitive, believe us weak." The Council leader tried to speak, but his voice failed as the tactical displays showed just how completely Earth's fleet had surrounded every major Council world. "Now you know the truth." Commander Anderson's eyes were cold. Earth was never defenseless. We were never primitive. We were the ones who helped end the ancient war. We were the ones who could have ruled the galaxy. We chose peace. She held up a crystal flower, like the one her son had tried to give the Council. "You could have had this," she said softly. "Instead, you chose fear. You chose violence. You killed my boy." The screens showed hundreds, then thousands of ships moving into attack positions. Each one carried weapons that could reduce planets to ash. "Now," Commander Anderson's voice rang through every Council chamber, every alien ship, every world that had looked down on humanity. "You get to learn why the ancient records call us the Star Breakers." The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what humanity would do next. The Galactic Council's Grand Chamber had never been so quiet. Hundreds of alien representatives sat frozen as Earth's holographic message played in the center of the room. Behind Admiral Miller's stern face, footage showed the true extent of humanity's power. "Let me show you what you never saw," Miller said, his voice calm but cold. "While you watched our primitive rockets, this is what we hid." The display changed to show massive shipyards hidden inside Mercury's core, factories that had been building advanced weapons for decades. Then it shifted to Europa, where huge hangars stretched under the ice, filled with ships that made the Council's best vessels look like children's toys. "But that's not all," Miller continued. "Let me show you something from our history, something you should have researched before you killed one of our children." The hologram changed again. Now it showed ancient battles, recordings from the war that had happened 10,000 years ago. Planets exploded. Stars went dark. And at the center of it all, Earth ships led the charge against horrors that had long since been forgotten. "We chose to hide this history," Miller explained. "We buried our weapons, hid our true power. We wanted to give peace a chance, to join your council as equals, not conquerors." A council member stood up, his tentacles trembling. "This must be fake. Earth cannot have this technology." Miller smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Scan the ships around your worlds right now. You'll find every word is true." Fear spread through the chamber as representatives checked their data pads. The scans confirmed everything. Earth's fleet wasn't just advanced, it was beyond anything they had thought possible. "You have 24 hours, Miller announced. 24 hours to deliver the guards who killed Tom Anderson. 24 hours to resign your positions. 24 hours to admit your mistakes to every world in the galaxy." The council leader rose from his seat, trying to maintain dignity. "You dare threaten the Galactic Council? We govern thousands of worlds. You cannot." Miller cut him off with a gesture. The hologram changed to show a single ship near the council's sun. It was small, almost invisible against the star's brightness. "Watch carefully," Miller said. The small ship fired a single shot. The beam seemed to bend space itself, creating a spiral of energy that reached into the star. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a section of the sun went dark, not exploding, not dying, but simply ceasing to exist. Panic erupted in the chamber. That was one ship, using one weapon. At minimum power, Miller's voice cut through the chaos. "We have thousands of ships. And that weapon? It's one of our oldest designs." The council leader sank back into his chair, his scales now ash-gray with fear. 24 hours, Miller repeated. "And if you're thinking of trying to fight." He paused as the hologram showed more of Earth's fleet emerging from hidden bases across the galaxy. "Remember what happened to the last empire that tried to fight Earth? Oh wait, you can't. Because nobody remembers them. They don't exist anymore." Commander Anderson stepped into view beside Miller, still holding the crystal flower that matched the one her son had offered. "We'll make this simple," she said, her voice carrying the weight of a mother's grief and a warrior's rage. "Justice for my son. A new council that respects all species, or we remind the galaxy why the ancient records called Earth the cradle of warriors." The hologram faded, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. On thousands of worlds, the same message had played. The truth about Earth, hidden for so long, was finally known. In orbit around every major council world, Earth's ships waited. Their weapons remained powered down. For now, each captain had clear orders. Wait 24 hours. Give them a chance to choose wisdom over pride. Some council members rushed to evacuate. Others began drafting surrender messages. A few brave ones started writing apologies. All of them looked up at their skies, where Earth's ships hung like silent stars, and wondered how they had failed to see the truth for so long. The countdown had begun. 23 hours had passed since Earth's ultimatum. In the council chamber, the alien leaders argued as the final minutes ticked away. Pride fought against wisdom, and pride was winning. "We cannot bow to primitives," the council leader shouted, pounding his fist on the ancient table. "So they hid some old ships. So they have a few advanced weapons. We rule the galaxy." A junior member, barely old enough to hold his position, spoke up. But the evidence, their technology, shouldn't we at least consider? Silence. The leader's scales flashed with anger. I will not be remembered as the one who surrendered to humans. On Earth, Admiral Miller and Commander Anderson watched the Council's chamber through hidden sensors. They sat in the ancient command center beneath Mount Cheyenne, surrounded by screens showing their fleets in position across the galaxy. They're not going to comply, Anderson said softly, touching the crystal flower she kept with her, so similar to the one her son had offered in friendship. Miller checked the time. 1 minute remaining. No, they're not. Their pride won't let them. The council leader stood before his people, his voice broadcast to all worlds. Let this be our answer to Earth's demands. The Galactic Council does not negotiate with threats. We are the power in this galaxy. We. The clock struck 0. Miller pressed a single button. Execute Protocol Prometheus. Across 100 star systems, Earth's ships moved as one. They had spent the last 24 hours calculating exact positions, precise timing, perfect coordination. Now, that planning paid off. The Council's defense platforms disappeared first. Not destroyed, simply disabled with technology that made their weapons refuse to fire. Next went their communication relays, cut off with surgical precision. In orbit around every Council world, the mighty defense fleets found their engines wouldn't respond. All of this happened in less than 5 minutes. No explosions, no deaths, just the quiet horror of watching their most advanced technology turn useless against Earth's power. In the Council chamber, the main screens showed it all. The leader's speech died in his throat as he watched his power disappear. This, Miller's voice rang through every speaker in Council space, is how Earth wages war. We could have destroyed everything. Instead, we simply turned it off. Commander Anderson stepped forward to address the galaxy. You killed my son when he offered peace. Now we offer you a choice. Surrender your positions, face justice, or... She nodded to a nearby officer. Above the Council's capital world, a single Earth ship fired a precise beam into the atmosphere. The clouds parted in a perfect circle, revealing the city below. Then, every piece of technology in that city, from the grandest building to the smallest communicator, shut down. We can do this to every world you control, she continued. We can shut down your civilization piece by piece. How long would your people support you if they had to live without their technology? A day? A week? A year? The Council chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives were already drafting surrender messages. Others called for immediate negotiations. A few tried to run. The Council leader stood alone, his authority crumbling as fast as his technology. How? He whispered. How did we not see this coming? Miller's voice answered him. Because you saw what you wanted to see. You saw simple rockets and thought them primitive. You saw peaceful colonists and thought them weak. You saw a child with a flower and thought him a threat. Earth's ships hung in the skies of 100 worlds, their ancient weapons still quiet, their power now undeniable. They didn't need to fire a shot. The truth of their strength was enough. Your rule is over, Commander Anderson declared. The galaxy will have a new council, one that protects children instead of killing them, one that welcomes peace instead of fearing it. She held up the crystal flower one last time. My son tried to give you a flower. You responded with death. Now we offer you one last choice. Step down, or we turn off everything. You have 1 hour to decide. The galaxy waited, watching as the mighty council faced the consequences of their fatal mistake. The council chamber looked nothing like it had a week ago. The grand seats were mostly empty now. The magnificent displays that had shown thousands of worlds were dark. In the center, the council leader sat alone, his once bright scales now dull with defeat. Earth's ships surrounded the capital world like a net of stars. Their presence was a constant reminder of how completely the balance of power had shifted. One by one, Council worlds had pledged loyalty to Earth's new order. Some did it out of fear, others out of relief that the old Council's rule was ending. Admiral Miller walked into the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Behind him came Commander Anderson and a group of representatives from Earth's oldest colonies. They didn't swagger or gloat. They moved with the quiet confidence of people who had held power for a very long time. "The hour is up," Miller announced. "What is your decision?" The council leader looked up, his eyes hollow. "We had records, you know. Ancient warnings about Earth, about your wars, your power. But they were so old, we thought they were just stories." "They weren't stories," Commander Anderson said quietly, "just as my son wasn't a threat. You should have read those records more carefully." Around them, hidden sensors activated. Every species in the galaxy watched what happened next. This was history, and Earth wanted everyone to see it. "We," the council leader's voice cracked, "we surrender. The Galactic Council submits to Earth's authority." Miller nodded. "Stand." The leader stood on shaking legs. Behind him, the few remaining council members did the same. "By the authority of Earth Command," Miller's voice rang through the chamber, "you are removed from power. You will face trial for your crimes. Not just for Tom Anderson's death, but for every species you've suppressed, every civilization you've held back, every child you've harmed." As he spoke, more figures entered the chamber. They weren't human. They were representatives from dozens of species, ones the council had labeled as primitive, dangerous, or unworthy. Each one carried evidence of the council's crimes against their people. "We've spent 50 years watching," Commander Anderson explained. "We saw how you treated younger species, how you kept them from advancing, how you used fear to control them. We documented everything." The council leader's scales turned almost white. You were testing us." "We were hoping you'd be better," Miller corrected. "We gave you every chance to prove you could leave the galaxy with wisdom and compassion. Instead, you proved why the old records warned about giving power to those who don't deserve it." Through the chamber's windows, they could see Earth's ships deploying something new. Massive structures began to form in space, the framework of a new government center, one built by many species working together, not just the Council's chosen few. "Your trial begins tomorrow," Commander Anderson announced. "It will be broadcast to every world. Every species will see the evidence. Justice will be clear and fair and public." The former council leader slumped in defeat. Guards, both human and alien, led him and his followers away. Commander Anderson walked to the center of the chamber. Where her son had died offering peace, she now stood offering change. The crystal flower in her hand caught the light from Earth's ships outside. "To every species watching," she addressed the galaxy, "we make this promise. The age of fear is over. Earth's fleet doesn't exist to conquer. It exists to protect, to ensure that no child, from any world, ever dies for offering friendship again." The chamber's lights dimmed, then came back on with a different color, softer, warmer. Outside, the new structures continued to grow. Ships from 100 worlds moved between them, carrying materials and hope for something better. Miller turned to the gathered representatives of the suppressed species. "Your voices were silenced before. Now we invite you to help build something new. A true galactic alliance, where every species has a voice, where progress isn't feared, where peace is protected." As the old council chamber transformed around them, Commander Anderson placed the crystal flower on a new pedestal in the center of the room, a permanent reminder of why things had to change. The reckoning had come, and with it, the chance for a better galaxy. 1 year after Tom Anderson's death, Mars Colony held another gathering. This time, the garden where he had picked his final flower had grown into something extraordinary. Crystal blooms of every color stretched toward the dome's ceiling, each one engineered to survive on any world, ready to be shared across the galaxy. The new Galactic Alliance headquarters floated in space above Mars, its design a collaboration of 100 species. At its heart stood a memorial hall, where a single crystal flower in a clear case marked the spot where everything had changed. Admiral Miller stood before the assembled representatives of the galaxy. The room was different now. No raised platforms for superior species, no separate sections for primitives. Every seat was equal, every voice valued. 1 year ago, he began, a child showed us what the galaxy could be. He didn't see aliens or council members. He saw new friends to share a gift with. Today, we honor that vision. The screens around them showed celebrations on countless worlds. Species that had once been enemies now worked together, sharing technology and knowledge that the old council had kept hidden. Earth's fleet still watched over everything, but now they were peacekeepers, not conquerors. Commander Anderson, wearing a new uniform that represented the Alliance rather than just Earth, stepped forward. She looked different now, still carrying her grief, but also carrying hope. The last of the council trials ended yesterday, she announced. Justice has been served, but more importantly, change has come. The images on the screens changed to show new achievements, colonies working together, shared scientific discoveries, and something that would have been impossible a year ago. A school where children from every species learned together. We found records in the Council's secret archives, Miller continued. Records of other children they killed, other gifts they rejected, other species they held back out of fear and pride. He paused, letting the words sink in. Those records have been made public. Every species now knows the truth. From the audience, a young alien child stood up. Its scales were the same color as the old council leaders had been, but there was no fear in its eyes. In its hands, it held a crystal flower. Can I give this to Commander Anderson? The child asked, voice trembling with nervousness. The room went silent. Everyone remembered what had happened last time. A child tried to give a flower to someone in power. Some of the older aliens tensed, old fears dying hard. Commander Anderson walked down from the stage. She knelt before the child, her eyes gentle. I would be honored to accept your gift. The child stepped forward and held out the flower. Without hesitation or fear, Commander Anderson took it. The room burst into applause, and more than a few tears fell. This, Miller's voice carried over the emotional moment, is the galaxy we're building. One where children don't die for offering friendship. One where power serves justice, not fear. On the screens, Earth's hidden fleet was visible now, spread throughout the galaxy. But they weren't weapons of war anymore. They had become guardians, protecting the peace that Tom's death had bought at such a terrible price. The old council believed that power came from making others afraid. Commander Anderson said, standing with the alien child's flower in her hand. They were wrong. Real power comes from making others feel safe enough to offer friendship. Outside the headquarters, ships from 1,000 worlds flew past in formation. Among them were vessels that had once belonged to Earth's secret fleet, but they weren't hidden anymore, and they weren't alone. Other species now helped crew them, learning from humanity's experience to become guardians themselves. In the Mars garden, Tom's mother tended the crystal flowers, preparing seedlings to be sent to every world in the Alliance. Each one would grow, adapt, and thrive in its new home, just as her son had dreamed of doing among the stars. The galaxy remembers your gift now, Tom, she whispered to the flowers. And they'll never forget what it taught us. Above her, the dome of Mars colony gleamed in the sunlight, and in orbit, the new Alliance kept watch, ensuring that peace, once bought with a child's life, would never be lost again.